Okay, so we'll talk about Boolean logic, and before we do that, we'll talk about George Boole. He's the researcher or the mathematician who discovered this piece, right? So one of the interesting facts about him to me is that he was just a regular person, right? Meaning, like, his parents were tradesmen at the time. Uh, he didn't have like a college education. Everything he did is in his life was self-taught. Like, he didn't go to a formal school, so he didn't have a bachelor's, he didn't have a master's, he didn't have a PhD, right? So that to me is like very impressive. So at the age of 16, he started teaching math to help his family financially, and 4 years later, at the age of 20, he opened his own school uh, up over there on the other side of the world, right, in Europe. But more importantly, right, the papers that led to Boolean logic were published like in the from the mid 1840s to like the mid uh, 1850s, so that a span of 10 years. And before that, he did a lot of research on calculus, right? So if you're taking calculus and you encounter differential equations, then he had a lot to do with that. But for this piece, for this class, the mathematical analysis of logic, right, was an essay uh, that I guess started this research into Boolean logic, right? And very simple research that he did, right? So let me go here. So okay, I'm trying to get one of these guys down here. Right, so that's just my talking piece here. But let me create one page. Okay, so his Boolean logic, right, mid 1850s, and Babbage, right, who's like credited for like creating the first computer. Like, he also lived during that same period, but like they didn't like Babbage didn't use uh, the Boolean logic that George Boole was researching at the time, right? He had his own methodology. So it was not until what, the 1920s, 1930s, that like the giant computers came about, right? Like a computer spanned like one room. But what's interesting to me there is that like a period of 70 years went by before like that piece started for computing. However, his Boolean logic is also the foundation for the telephone system, right? So when the telephone system came about, they used his Boolean logic to build the telephones, right? So his research has had an impact to the electronic age. Even like you have a phone right now, like his Boolean logic is on your phone or on our computers, on our speaker phones, on anything, right? At the ATM. So he was ahead of his time, right? Like, I mean, because like maybe the technology wasn't there to build computers in the 1850s, 1860s, but still, like, it took 70 years for other researchers to be like, oh wow, like this guy like has everything for us, right? We're not gonna touch on the whole Boolean algebra stuff here. We're just gonna focus on what's related to conditional statements and repetition structures, right? As far as conditions. So George Boole uh, passed. I guess let me finish his piece, right? So eventually he became like a professor of mathematics in 1849, and I guess at that time, like even now, like you don't become a professor without formal education, but like he had contributed so much to the field that he became professor. I'm assuming that's kind of like a big thing, right? Because Otherwise, Britannica and the Stanford Encyclopedia wouldn't bring this up. And then, unfortunately, he passed at the age of 64. So he wasn't even 50, right? He was born in 1815, and he died of pneumonia. And I always think that was interesting. I honestly, like in the 90s, I didn't know about this guy. Like nobody told me. Maybe they did, and I just walk through that class. But it's not until like 2015 when they were celebrating his 200th birthday, presumably, right? And I saw the video and I was like, what? Like this guy, like he did that, and I didn't know, right? So I always thought that was so cool. And even though like I came about to know about him through chance, like I still think it's so interesting, and we need to at least, like, from my point of view, like students need to know at least a little bit about him, right? So that we know that he was a big contributor to the mathematics and to the computing explosion that occurred in the 20s and beyond, right? So interesting. So let me